Hello everyone, my name is KelSounds, and today I want to show you how to make this Riddim preset inside of Faceplant. Let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start off with is making the wavetable. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and grab an analog generator, and then I'm going to hit triangle wave, and then I'm going to make a new group, grab another analog, hit a triangle wave, and modulate the phase to 220. And then I'm going to grab this macro knob and hit this equal sign on the phase, so that way we can modulate the phase inside of Ableton here. I like the way that sounds, but I don't want it to sound too rough when it goes into the wavetable, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the wavetable generator and do amplitude modulation here. Turn it all the way up. Then I'm going to go inside the wavetable editor and click on this. So I want the phase of the wavetable to start at 0, so I'm going to have it in the middle, and then kind of make actually like a triangle shape here, just like this. Oh, and another thing, I turn this up to 2, or oops, not 3. So the wavetable should sound like this. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and redo the amplitude modulation shape here, and kind of make it into this kind of shape. Okay, so now the wavetable should sound like this. I'm going to leave it at 225. I kind of like the way that sounds. Okay, so now that we got everything set here, I'm going to click on the arrow down here, hit configure, and configure macro 1. And I'm going to go ahead and automate this. And then I'm going to record it and export it so that way we can import it into a wavetable. And then for the automation, I'm actually going to have it set to a higher value here. Okay, so 0.54 is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and record this. And that is perfect. And I'm just going to rename it. I'm just going to put it as F0. That was the note that we had it at when recording. And then I'm going to export this wave. Okay, so now that we have our wavetable recorded, I'm going to go ahead and find it in my sample library, and then I'm going to import it. Actually, before we do anything, I'm going to go ahead and draw my MIDI note in. So it was at F0. Perfect. Okay. Hit new here. Drag and drop your sample in and convert to wavetable for wavetable generator. And then let's just hear what it sounds like first. And that sounds pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and hit done. And that is our wavetable. Okay, so before the effects, I'm going to go ahead and just place down a LFO and modulate the frame of the wavetable. And then I'm just going to mess with the modulation to see where I like it sounding the best. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to sync. Put this at 8, right click, note trigger, hit always. Okay, so I went ahead and made this kind of shape with the LFO, and it sounds like this. And I think I like the way that sounds, so I'm just going to leave it there. Grabbed a 3-band EQ, and I just boosted the highs a little bit, maybe like 2 decibels, or around 3. And who knows, it might even come back to this because when we put the signal through the MultiPass, it's really going to bring out the sound, so we might have to even lower it down. Okay, so now for the FX. I'm going to go ahead and add a new group and just call it FX. And then the first thing I did was add 3 resonators. I'm going to turn these 2 off. And the first one I had set to F3, so I think I'm just going to right click, hit F3. The intensity was set at 52. And the decay just hit 5. Perfect. And then for the second resonator, it was set at G2. The intensity was at 58. And then the decay was at 15. And as you can hear, it's already getting a little bit more resonant. Okay, and for the third resonator, go ahead and put F#1, and then I set the intensity to 45, and then I set the decay to 13. and it sounds like this. So without the resonators, and then with. And then I think I'm just going to go ahead and add another 3-band EQ, and boost the highs. Another thing that I did was added a disperser, turn the pinch up, just kind of find like a sweet spot. And I added 2 of them. Turn the pinch down. And I like the way that sounds, so I'm just going to leave that there. Alright, so now I want to add some stereo information. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a snap heap, do parallel processing, add a chorus, turn it up all the way, and turn the depth up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to turn the gain down a little bit as well. Maybe around like -5. And then I'm going to also turn down the mix. I don't want to boost it too much because, like I said, once it goes through the OTT, it's going to bring out a lot of the signal. And then I'm just going to put it in a new group. Just place that in there. And there we go. Okay, so now I want to do a little bit of mixing. So I'm going to add a new group. I call this mix. And then before anything, I'm going to actually come down here to the send and set it to lane 3. Just because I don't want it going through lane 2. I just want it going directly to lane 3. But anyways, I'm going to add a filter and set it to high pass, set the cutoff to around 180, and then I'm going to set the filter slope to 2 and duplicate it. So that way, none of the high frequencies are interrupting the bass frequencies. Okay, so now I want to add the bass. So for that, I'm going to grab an analog, have it set to a triangle wave. Then I'm going to add a filter and set the bass to like 120. And I'm just going to boost up the res a little bit to like, we could do like 1. Oh wait, no, do 1.5. Yeah, maybe that might even be too much. 1.2. Yeah, that's good. And then I'm going to set the gain to -20, and then send this to lane 3. So it should sound like this. I'm going to rename the group bass. Okay, so before we move on to anything else, I'm going to go ahead and work on the volume automation. So I'm going to come up here and rename this macro to speed. I'm going to go ahead and rename this first group as well. I'll just call it main sound. Then I'm going to add a new group down here and call it wavetable or WT position. Put the LFO in that group. And then I'm actually going to turn this down to 4. And then I might mess with the shape a little bit more. For the first macro, I want it to be set to 2 speeds, so I only want it to be set to 4/16, and then I also want it to be set to 2/16, but I want it to be a triplet, so I want it to sound like this. So yeah, to do that, I had to use a remap utility. So yeah, since that actually sounds a little bit annoying, I'm going to just do this, see how it sounds really quickly. I think I might like that better. Okay, so I actually just went ahead and changed the shape of the LFO to look like this, and then I set the frame of the wavetable to 132, and it looks like the LFO is at 79. And then the shape that we had previously, I think I'm just going to use that for the volume automation of the gain. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new group, call this volume automation, and then add an LFO, right click the trigger, set to always, and then set it to synchronize, and then we're going to automate the gain. Well, first I'm going to turn it down, then modulate the gain to 50. Okay, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it was the wavetable that we were automating. I think it was the gain. So I just made this kind of shape, and something like this. And so it should sound like. Then when I lower it down to a triplet. Okay, that's why it was sounding annoying. Sorry, guys. So yeah, it should sound like that. And so like I said, I just want the LFO to be set to 2 speeds. So to do that, we're going to use a remap. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add a new group and call this, I don't know, just forward timing. And then we're going to go and add a remap utility. So this actually took me a little bit to figure out because it was kind of confusing. I didn't really know what was happening at first. And then after I just started messing with the knobs and modulating different areas, I kind of figured it out. So we want our speed macro to modulate the remap, and then the remap is going to be modulating the values of our LFO here. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. To the first number, I'm going to set it to -2. And then for the second number, I'm going to right click and hit 16T. So it should sound like this. But as you can hear, the timing doesn't really sound right. So to get to the triplet, it goes through like different speeds, and I don't really want that. So to fix that, we have to come over here inside the remap. I'm going to hit the magnet and then do this kind of shape, like a square wave. So that way it doesn't go in between speeds. And so yeah, it'll sound like that. Okay, and then for the next thing, I want to add a preset from the shaper called Smasher. I thought it sounded really cool. This is something I was experimenting with the first preset, and I was just messing around with the different shapes, and I thought Smasher sounded really cool. I think it's in Simple. Here it is, Smasher. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click and hit 5. And I think I only set it to like 5%, to be honest, because it really just overdrives the sound. I'm going to go ahead and call macro to optional distortion. So yeah, in the first patch, no, actually, I think it was like 7%. There we go. Oh yeah, so as you can see, it's... Okay, maybe that's way too much. So 5 should be more than enough. That's way too much. But I really like the way it sounded, and especially with the over-the-top MultiPass. So I'm going to go ahead and modulate the mix, right-click, and hit 5 for 5%. So all the way it sounds like this. And then at 50% it sounds like this. And so I really like it at 50%, so I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, now we're going to add a MultiPass, so I'm just going to add a new group, call this OTT, and then grab my MultiPass, and then open it. For the split frequency bands, this one was set to 120, and then for the second frequency, I set it to 4000, and then of course, we add our dynamics. For the downwards compression, I pushed it all the way down. And then for the high threshold, I set it to -30. Oh, whoops, perfect. Then I did the same thing for the mids, -30. And then for the lows, set it to -23. And then we're just going to go ahead and boost the signal all the way up to 24 decibels. So we're just smashing the signals. And so it's going to sound like this. Okay, so for the highs, the release was set around like, I think it was like 313 or 313%. And I even set a knee on it as well, so the compression can happen a little bit earlier. Because in the previous preset, the highs were really shining through. I just wanted to compress them a bit more. And then for the mids, it was set at 200%. And we're just going to leave that the way it is. And then for the release on the lows, I think it was around like 65%. And the attack, I'm just going to leave it as is. So it should sound like this. I'm going to go ahead and turn the knee up a little bit more, actually. Alright, and that's perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn down the mix to like, I think it was like 80. Then I duplicated it. And I turned the mix to like 20%, I'm pretty sure. Usually when I'm processing stuff inside of Ableton and I use Ableton's OTT, I always duplicate it. And I always turn the mix of the second one down. And it sounds pretty crushed right now. So I'm not going to put a gain after it because I turn up the gain inside of the limiter once we add it. So I'm just going to leave it as is. So yeah, set this back to 20. Alright, and that's perfect. Okay, so now for the post-processing, and all I did was added a new group, called this post-processing, and then I added a slice EQ. And then I went ahead and dipped around 250 hertz. Did like I think like -5, turn the Q up, and then set the cutoff to 250. I might even dip this to like -7 actually. Then I went ahead and round off the sub frequency. I also want to set the bass in mono, so I'm going to go ahead and grab actually another multipass, set this to 120, grab a stereo snap in, and set the width to 0. I'm going to put that before the slice EQ. There we go. Okay, and for the last thing, I'm going to go ahead and add a limiter, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn up the in gain. Might even turn down the master here. I'm going to go ahead and get the signal close to 0 decibels. So it sounds very distorted actually. I went ahead and changed the wavetable frame here. Kind of mess around with different settings. Ooh, I like that. Alright, perfect. So the limiter is at 12 for the in gain. It's going to get really loud, so I just try to get it to as close to 0 decibels on the limiter. I think the bass is still a little bit too present, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this slice EQ and just do a little bit of cutting. Okay, so in the slice EQ, I set the Q to 0.567. If you want to go ahead and copy that, you can. Just to cut a little bit of the sub frequencies, because it was a little too loud for my liking. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and adjust the optional distortion here to like 23 maybe, or 25. Or maybe even 20%. And I wonder what it sounds like at a different note, so like E0, let's test that out. Ooh, kind of sharp. Ah, forgot I had this set to mono. Ooh, whoops. Alright, I'm gonna put it back at F0. Alrighty, so I guess the last final touches that I added was I went back into the OTT and I set the release of the low end actually to 100%. And then I duplicated it. Oh, so the first one's at like 79% or around, put in 80%. And then the second multipass is at 20%. Then I kind of just messed around with the frames. So yeah, it's all about what sounds best to you. So messing around with the parameters definitely helps a lot. And messing with the distortion as well. Just tweaking some things here and there. I really encourage you guys to just use your ears and see what sounds best. But those were the final touches that I added as I was hearing the sound back over and over again. I really like it at F0. Oops, kind of loud. And yeah, that is how to make a Riddim style sound in Faceplant. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to go ahead and title this and leave this preset on my blog post on my website. So it's going to be for free. So if you want to go ahead and download that and look at the preset or mess around with it and, I don't know, just pretty much do whatever you want with it, you can go ahead and download that for free. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Adios.